The year is 1963. The Cold War hostility is at its peak. However, to one man, there was a lighter side to everything, even the possibility of the end of the world. Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove, How I Learned to Love the Bomb, addresses the issues surrounding the development of the hydrogen bomb and the hostility between the US and Soviets as they engaged in an escalating arms race, all whilst B-52 US planes had received orders by a general to attack the USSR with nuclear arms. Kubrick's film therefore poses questions surrounding the effectiveness of the hotline, fears of communism within America, likelihood of a full-scale nuclear war, and the plan of action if indeed a full-scale nuclear war occurred. Dr. Strangelove was released on January 29, 1964, at a time when America and the USSR were both attempting to establish nuclear superiority. By 1964, the US had been successful in diffusing tension following the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world had been closest to a full-scale war under Kennedy's Flexible Response Program. However, by 1964, the US had also failed. With the Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy was dead, the Berlin Wall had been erected, and the conflict in Vietnam was beginning. This war-torn, paranoid state is depicted in Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. In preparation to writing this film, Kubrick undertook extensive research, reading 50 books surrounding the possibility of war. A major influence of Dr. Strangelove was Herman Kahn's On a Thermonuclear War that suggested mutually assured destruction, MAD, between the two sides was not a deterrent if weapons such as the Doomsday Machine existed. This fear effectively forms the basis of Dr. Strangelove and also forms Kubrick's key purpose of the film.
As John Clare suggests in his book, The USA and the USSR as World Superpowers.
I have a plan. Monsieur! Hasn't worked!
Kubrick ultimately wanted to pick the Cold War as silly and dangerous, while showing the very real fears of America in the 1960s. By satirizing the Cold War, the extremely comedic nature of the film allows the audience to relax and take in the story. Kubrick, in his 1963 interview, stated, "You do laugh when reading it, but it never stops you thinking, this could happen." On top of this, the satiric nature of the film gives the audience a sense of absurdity towards the issues covered in the film. However, the absurdity Kubrick presents, whether it be the drunken hotline call or the excluded pie fight at the end, never extends to the point where they are not believable. The audience will always believe the action they are seeing. This shows that whilst the actions in the film are hyperbolic, the fears they demonstrate are very real. The satire is used to emote audiences in understanding this incredibly scary concept that the world could end. Whilst the emotions of the film capture the atmosphere of a Cold War environment, questions are raised surrounding the historical depiction of the film. Firstly, the setting and the war room. The war room in Dr. Strangelove is an environment where America's top leaders discuss what to do in relation to the hydrogen bomb that is about to be dropped over the USSR. The room then, towards the end of the film, becomes a room where the leaders discuss what to do now the world is about to collapse. The problem with this war room, however, is that it never actually existed in reality during the Cold War. As Bosley Crowther puts it, the film is based more on wild imagination rather than truth, and this therefore is reinforced by Kubrick's portrayal of a room during the Cold War, where political and military leaders could discuss policy. However, whilst the war room never existed, it symbolically represents what Kubrick was trying to achieve through the film. The room, as Kubrick wanted it, presents the leaders round a poker table playing with the world's fate. It was Kubrick's idea that the table be covered in green felt to represent a poker table. It deals with the tensions the leaders had to deal with when taking action and the divide within America, as some generals believed the US should strike first, while others wanted to continue to pursue Eisenhower's massive retaliation and wait for the Soviets to attack first. Therefore, the film is a success in demonstrating the attitudes whilst not being completely historically accurate.
Now then, Dmitri, you know how we've always talked about the possibility of something going wrong with the bomb.
Whilst the war room is not historically true, other elements of the film are. The hotline had been established in 1963 following the Cuban Missile Crisis, and whilst in the film its connection is dramatized, it deals with the issues of this connection. In Dr. Strangelove, the president is talking to the Russian premier in English, the first faux pas, as communication like this would not have existed. Secondly, the premier in Russia is presented to be drunk, and the US president is apologetic and weak in opposition to his staunch generals. Kubrick's asked Sellers to play the president as a progressive nursery teacher, thus creating lunacy and idiocy in the situation. The use of this hotline and casual conversation held over the phone, despite the distressing situation, effectively adds to the satire and depicts the fears of the public over the true relations between the US and USSR following the Cuban Missile Crisis, as hostility still did exist. Secondly, the theory of fluoridation is used by General Ripper as an excuse to attack the Soviets, as they were apparently poisoning the US's water supply. Whilst this may appear as an absurd theory, it did genuinely exist in America, therefore suggesting Ripper's apparent fears are plausible and Kubrick's depiction is historically accurate. On top of this, Kubrick is indirectly showing the fears of the 1950s Red Scare, where communism was thought to be inside the US, with trials held over authors and lawyers and various people within the media. This is physically depicted with the fight between the two US Army squadrons as mistrust and fear surrounded the chaos. Again, whilst this physical action isn't true, their emotions are historically accurate, as there was indeed tension within the USA. The Doomsday Machine is another of Kubrick's inventions. The machine is one of apparent USSR invention and has the capability of destroying the world if the USSR is attacked. On top of this, it cannot be deactivated, as this true will trigger it. This absurd idea questions the concept of MAD and the continuing arms race. Had the crazed General Ripper known of the Doomsday Machine, he may have been more reluctant to carry out Plan R and attack the Soviets' base. This is Kubrick arguing with an anti-war perspective, as he, through dramatizing and inventing the Russian machine, shows the issues of deploying nuclear arms and the arms race that could eventually lead to weapons such as the Doomsday Machine being introduced.
It would not be difficult, mein Führer. Nuclear reactors could... I'm sorry, Mr. President. Nuclear reactors could provide power almost indefinitely. Greenhouses could maintain plant life. Animals could be bred and slaughtered.
The safety plan following the detonation of the nuclear bomb is also a successful representation of the past. Whilst the idea of hiding in mine shafts may have not been publicly announced, it was an idea that had been created by Nelson Rockefeller and Edward Teller. Kubrick again satirizes this safety plan for the elite, suggesting it could be used for men to have multiple women, with misogyny no longer existent in society, as Dr. Strangelove suggests. Again, this absurdity of the Cold War environment is successfully shown. The character himself, Dr. Strangelove, is historically based off the ex-Nazi scientist John von Neumann, who the US did employ to help with the deployment of the hydrogen bomb. By using this already existent person and dramatizing him with a disability and his continual love of Adolf Hitler, with him raising the Nazi salute every single time he gets excited, Kubrick presents a confused and fragile political military state. This represents the attitudes of a society who feared the ending of the world and the handling of nuclear weapons, especially by such an unstable government.
Fear can be seen in the production of nuclear safety campaigns depicting how nuclear war was a real possibility.
This therefore means Dr. Strangelove is a success, as again, whilst the safety plan was never called into action and the Doomsday Machine was never deployed, the fear surrounding these two things did exist in American society. Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove ultimately represents the past by depicting the Cold War as silly and dangerous, capturing the atmosphere of the Cold War environment through satire. It also shows the Doomsday Machine, it shows the safety plan following the detonation of the nuclear bomb, and it also suggests theories of fluoridation and McCarthyism within America, showing the fear of society at the time. This ultimately means Kubrick's film is a success. Whilst actions such as the bombing of the USSR are fiction, the attitudes in the film are very real. This is much more important for a film when it comes to accurately representing the past. Dana Hopkins of the New York Times sums up the overall reaction to this Hollywood success. We have all been given entertainment, but truth as well. At the end of the day, isn't this what a film representing history has to do? The satire and tensions presented are why the film is so effective. The viewer who agrees can take the film for what it's worth with all its political bashing, whilst the viewer who doesn't can sit back and enjoy a piece of comedic genius. However, by entertaining the audience and spreading widespread opinion, the film is successful in what it intends to do: make the audience think.